we've all maybe been walking down the street and we've seen a store that we want to go into, and it's a Sunday or something, and you're not quite certain if the store is open or closed, and you kind of try the knob on the door and find out if they're open or closed. And I think what happens with businesses is that hackers usually are using automated tools, and they're trying hundreds of thousands of knobs on, hundreds of thousands of virtual doors. And they find out that people have left their business open, even if they're not intending to, due to bad security. So, the hackers are not they're not looking for a small business. They're not looking for a big business. They're looking for a business that's just left their door open at night. And they're once they find it through the automation, then they can start targeting in on whether it's a good, easy target. And if you're working overseas, which many of these folks are, a small theft of $100, $1,500, $2,500 is a lot of money in a lot of places in the world. But we also see huge thefts. We see, $300,000 from lawyers and real estate closing companies. We see $15,000 when you're just paying a normal, large bill. We see $5,000 when you're, paying an employee for for the month or the week. A senior employee. So there's a lot of thefts that range the whole gamut. And the business model makes sense when you are able to come up with so many different targets so quickly. Most businesses are using either Microsoft or Google for a large portion of their data. So if you're using one of these big platforms, think about getting more of your data neatly into that platform and then optimizing that platform to protect your data. Now, the approaches between the two platforms are very different. Google has more of a black box security by default methodology. Microsoft has a secure score where you can more easily integrate legacy and third-party systems, and then the system rates how well those systems are being managed based on today's security standards. So one of the challenges if you're trying to have a big tent like Microsoft is trying to do is that to be compatible with a lot of different tools, some tools are way back in the past when it comes to security. So Microsoft gives you a security score. Google is, in many cases, kind of locks those other systems out. So Google is going to work best, a Chromebook or something along those lines. It's going to work best all in the web browser. And if you start downloading outside of Google, downloading to local hard drives, those types of things, then it kind of becomes out of control of the Google system. So the concept here is whichever platform you're doing, work within the security administration consoles and optimize for that platform. Try to get everything in one platform. If you're a small business, you can often do that. Even if there's some third-party tools there, a lot of these big platforms like Microsoft and Google can also provide the gatekeeping password security for your third-party tools. So you can have one login that kind of is managing the connections into everything. So focus on your platform and getting it secure is, I think, the simplest way of doing that. If you're in the Microsoft ecosystem, that's going to be the secure score, and it's very easy to read. It's 1 to 100, and it basically tells you where your deficiencies are. And then usually you have those deficiencies because you're trying to make an older system work for your team, and it tells you what the side effect is for the medicine. So, if you take the security medicine, these are the side effects that you may encounter if you have older systems. So you can read through that. You don't have to be an IT wizard. It is fairly detail oriented, but somebody who is not doing IT as their primary job can read through these things and say, yeah, I think I have some of these older systems in place. I might have some negative side effects with that security medicine. You can read through it pretty easily and then give the green light to IT to close down those gaps. I think the best way to work with a tight budget is to really have a tight perimeter. So the more disciplined you are with where you put your data, and knowing how your business processes work, the easier it is for you to secure your operations. And also, if your operations need to be compliant, you've got HIPAA, GDPR, SOC, CMMC. The more your data, the more you know where your data is, and the fewer locations you're keeping it, as a business, the easier it is to achieve compliance. Um, so really, that's completely up to the business owner. If the business owner wants to utilize 10 different tools to get the job done, it's going to be a lot more for the IT team to secure, 10 different tools. If you don't know how your people are working and you find out your people are, storing work information on personal phones, they're downloading copies of files to thumb drives because the business just doesn't flow that well with some of the processes. You've got, you're going to have a lot of risk, not just cybersecurity risk, but just, a key sales piece person leaves or a key employee leaves and all of your data is walking out with them. So the more you can kind of tamp down on that process wise and administratively, um, the better you're going to be. And a lot of times that does start with a compliance minded type journey. If you need compliance need to meet a compliance framework, oftentimes it says, what are the policies for the business? What are the do employees have rights to do these things? So if you haven't thought through some of those things, as the owner, it's really hard for IT to lock things down on users if they don't have permission to do it. So if there's no policies in place that users can't do these things, IT probably is way behind with actually locking anything down. And you could get there through doing something like the Microsoft Secure Score and say, you know, hey, Microsoft is saying you should lock this down. Let's turn it off. Or you could get there just by thinking through how you want your people to work. Is it okay for people to, you know, copy company data everywhere? Well, let's say a policy that company data is just to stay on company provided systems, and you set that policy, and then IT can kind of figure it out as well. So you can get to the same places through two different means, but it's good to think through that as a leader. Well, I think the most common technology mistake, and it goes back to the security question as well, um, but it really is having too many platforms. It's trying to do too much. And oftentimes that may also often come out of, a lot of these technology decisions are also people decisions. So if you have too many IT managers or it's not clear who's in charge, of making technology decisions, it's going to be much more likely that you're going to have too many platforms. So, the classic example is, you're using PC and Mac, both great platforms, both with diehard, followers. But if you're trying to do both, it's going to be a lot harder to, have efficient operations because your IT team is going to have to figure out how to support both platforms, which, is certainly something that's doable, but it's twice the work for your IT team to figure out two different platforms with different management surfaces. You can do all the same things in both platforms, but let's say that on the security side, you have to set up the policies differently for PC and Mac. Completely, you can encrypt local hard drives. Well, it's different to that on PC versus Mac. So it's going to be double the work for your IT team. So that's going to affect um, everything. It's going to affect the labor. It's going to affect your tooling. It's going to affect your security because likely they're not going to do it well in both platforms. It's going to affect your user experience. Your users are probably going to spend more time getting the job done if they're trying to do it across two different platforms. So as the business leader, if you can make straightforward decisions about what platforms to use and stick with it and say no, that's going to save you money. It's usually not just IT for the sake of IT, which oftentimes the IT department kind of lives in that space. These are tools that make IT's job easier. Yeah, that'll help the profitability a little bit, but usually it's more of an integrated strategy where um, the business is embracing things like uh, their website and taking information in from their customers and stakeholders so that they can respond to more leads. They can close deals faster because they're using electronic forms and signatures. That all of this information is going into their system in an efficient fashion. And then, yeah, of course, IT setting up new computers or managing security, those IT for the sake of IT things, keeping those streamlined and straightforward as well. That's going to really improve profitability all around. So what I see is oftentimes people are more or less engaged on one of those functions. So you really want to be balanced across, the things like IT security, which is kind of IT for the sake of IT, and the things like, hey, we want to have a great customer experience for our digitally savvy customers who are finding our business on our phones and want to get a quote right away or close a deal quickly. I think the best thing that a small business can do is to really leverage their website and make sure that you can do the things that you need to do for your business, like um, going through initial discovery with a prospect. So you have just about everybody has a form on their website that says contact us, but is there more that you need to get out of your customer um, or prospect than just that initial contact? Is there some sort of qualification stage? After that, is there a contracting stage? Do you have an ability to do an electronic um, quote that can be e-signed and the deal closed? Do you have a payment portal? These are all things that a lot of us expect nowadays, um, and a lot of big businesses have, of course. But usually you can do it if you're a small business, and then it gives you that efficiency and the ability to scale if you're able to accomplish these things. But oftentimes, I think the biggest obstacle to this is just a mindset in the ownership of the business that we're a unique snowflake. We want to have a one-on-one conversation with our customers. Um, we don't want to talk about pricing out on our website. We want to do everything sort of one off, but sometimes you just have to sit back and be realistic. Like, how many other people are in our industry throughout the United States? Maybe I'm not as unique as I think I am. And if there's some boundaries that I need to talk about with our offering, maybe I can start calling those things out and just at least providing some sort of ballpark or some sort of basic guidance, um, on our website. So I do think it all comes with your website and making sure you can get those leads processed in pretty efficiently. I mean, we see a lot of kind of boutique businesses that you wouldn't think would be able to grow nationally or internationally. And because they really have unlocked the power of e-commerce and they put their offering out there on the internet, we see phenomenal growth in those businesses. And these are sometimes businesses that you really wouldn't think could scale that way. I can think of one that's an organic um, feed mill that makes organic feed for chickens. And, this seems like something buying a bag of feed, it's probably 50 pounds or something that that is would be very local. And I'm sure it has been for a long time where you would go to, the Farm Bureau or someplace like that, Lowe's, and buy a bag of feed. But they're shipping directly to people that have backyard chickens throughout the entire United States. We've seen other businesses where they're offering boutique services like dyed wool right on their website, and they're really able to grow. But we've even seen businesses like your dentist or sort of things that really, you can't deliver those services online. But if that office is putting their patient registration forms online, if they have a payment portal on their website, and if that stuff is efficiently coming in via their email and business systems, it just makes things so much more efficient. And those practices become the kind of the more regional powerhouses because they are adopting technology. This is a really tough decision. I think the first thing is you want to know who's in charge. So if that's an in-house employee, great. If it's an outsourced provider, great. If you've got multiple people involved, you really want to work on their roles and responsibilities. Um, this is one of the things where you can be successful with a lot of different support structures, but you want to know who you're dealing with. So I think the biggest challenge, whether it's in-house or outsourced, is really not knowing the caliber of person that you're dealing with. Um, if IT isn't your thing, you might find that somebody who seems very proficient in a lot of the things that you need as a user isn't the best one to be providing leadership. So it would be kind of like if you were asking your cleaning person who's, looking over keeping your house clean, and you're expecting that person to be the architect of your new house. These are very different jobs, different disciplines, different training. Um, so, just because somebody can kind of keep the bathroom clean doesn't mean like that they know how to lay out a bathroom or design a house or design a system. But oftentimes that's what we ask of IT people that are essentially in that maintenance help desk role, that we're then going to foist on them very specific tasks like, um, you know, budgeting and planning, or cybersecurity, or responsibility for SharePoint or a phone system. I mean, these are whole different disciplines of IT, and it really takes a team. It may even take a vendor if you're working with a vendor, or an employee, if you have an employee that has a mindset that they're not going to solve it all themselves, that they can't be all things to their users, that they're going to call in a subcontractor that specializes in SharePoint if things get to that level. So I think it really, you want to find somebody that can provide leadership. And then if you're not working with that person, you want to, like, let's say you have a great help desk person, they're your in-house IT person. You want to set up an environment where it's comfortable for them to ask for help and to get that expertise brought in, where the expectation for the role isn't for them to solve everything themselves and be a jack of all trades, master of none. That you allow them to say, hey, I'm stumped here. I need some budget to bring in somebody else to deal with our cybersecurity, or to put together a 4-year budget. These are not the things that I'm passionate about or know anything about. I need somebody to help us with compliance. I can't do it all myself. So I think that that's really the way to go.